everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Hadley, and today I'm going to talk about some of the most recent books that I've read, along with some of the books that I'm going to be picking up very soon. The next books basically that I need to read. So without further ado, let's get into it. There were a few books that I read. The first one that I want to share is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. So I actually read this one like a little over a month ago, so it's not super fresh in my head. But basically, the back says, every enchantment has a price. Isabel is a prodigy portrait artist with a dangerous set of clients, the immortal fair folk. But when she receives her first royal patron, Rook, the autumn prince, she makes a terrible mistake. She paints mortal sorrow in his eyes, a weakness that could cost him his life. So after that happens in the story, she just kind of gets taken away to the fairy world just to be able to stand trial for what she's done. But along the way, there is romance, they fall in love, and they have to go on this adventure together in order to kind of clear her name within the fairy world with the fairy people. And overall, I really did enjoy the story. It was a very cute, cozy kind of romance. I did, however, think that the story was a little bit short. I would have liked to see it just fleshed out just a little bit more. While it did achieve everything that it promised, a cute love story, fairy magic, and dealing with the fairy world and the fairy courts and kind of how they operate, I did feel like it just could be a little bit longer. I felt like it was just lacking something, and I'm not quite sure what, but it didn't feel like it had quite reached where it needed to go for me personally. I just would have liked to see just a little bit more story, a little bit more of the plot, not have them get there so quickly. It did feel like the romance was a little bit rushed. It was just like all of a sudden they were both in love and all of that. So I did feel like that was a little bit rushed, but overall it still was a very well written, enjoyable, cute story. I did enjoy how in this story they actually have the main character having to take a bathroom break along their journey. You don't really see that in a lot of fantasy stories where they have to stop and take like this bathroom break, or are self-conscious of getting changed in front of the other person. That was another part of the story that happened. Sorry, my dogs are fighting and playing, so you're gonna hear them in the background. So I did really enjoy that aspect of the story because that's not something that you see a lot, and it kind of just makes you remember, oh yeah, they would have to take bathroom breaks and be changing their clothes or having to take baths, which you also don't really see that much. So I really appreciated that part of the story. It made it feel a little bit more real. And I also really enjoyed the main character. I thought that she was interesting. I thought that, I enjoyed being in her head. I enjoyed her character overall. And I thought that she was just a very bright, very intelligent and sweet main character. So I did enjoy her very much. So overall, I gave the story 3.5 out of 5 stars, just because it was a little bit lacking, again, in the plot department for me with the development of the romance, but it was still a really enjoyable read for me. The next book I'm going to talk about, I am so excited because this book just popped out at me from nowhere. So I was at the bookstore. I didn't really know what I was looking for. I was just kind of browsing all of the sections, and I found this book just in the general fiction section. Never heard of this author, never heard of this book, but the cover really drew me in. And that book is All's Well by Mona Awad. I might be saying her last name wrong. I apologize for that. But this book cover really stood out to me because I'm a theater person, if you can't tell. I am an actor. I'm also a drama teacher. That's my regular full-time job. So I love theater. I love anything to do with theater. So when I saw this cover, it just stood out to me immediately, and I was drawn to it. And basically, this story follows a woman named Miranda Fitch, and she had an accident earlier on in her life when she was younger. She was a professional actress. She was a Shakespearean actress. She was very well received for her performances and was very talented. And one time during a performance of Macbeth, where she was Lady Macbeth, she had an accident where she fell off the stage, and ever since then has had chronic pain in her body. Specifically, I believe, from what I remember, it was in like her knees, her legs, and her back. That was where most of the pain was for her. And now it is years and years later. She is a professor at a university and she teaches theater. She's a theater professor and director there. She's directed a number of Shakespeare shows there, but it is hard for her because she can no longer perform. And this is kind of where she's stuck. And she has this chronic pain, but it feels like and seems like nobody really cares or gives her the time of day or really believes that her pain is real. That is until she is at a bar and she meets these three strange men who seem to know everything about her and her life and her situation. And what happens is, at one point, one of the men kind of grabs her hand and touches her, and it's as though her pain is transferred over into that other person. And this actually happens multiple times in the story, and she just seems to start to get better, and we don't really know how or why this is happening. This story is very strange, very weird, but from what I have read and heard about this author, that is just kind of her style. I absolutely loved this book. I flew through it in like less than 2 days. I finished this book. It was just so good. I mean, it's not very long either, but just the way that the writing style is, it's a very easy, quick read. It doesn't take a lot of deciphering or a lot of having to look over the words and really think about what you're reading. It is a very easy read, but the way that she writes, it just draws you in. I mean, from the first sentence, I was in for it. And again, it might just be because I am a theater person, I'm an actor, I enjoy stories about theater, but I think that even if that wasn't the case, I still would have been drawn in with this book. It was absolutely incredible. Fantastic story, crazy ending, very strange, but if you are into those kind of things and kind of don't mind if things aren't really explained, because at the end it kind of leaves you a little confused. Not everything is tied together, but it kind of leaves things up to interpretation. If you are into that kind of thing, this is definitely the book for you. It was absolutely great. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars because I just enjoyed it so much. The next book I'm going to talk about is another book that has to do with Shakespeare and theater, strangely enough, and that book is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This book follows these 7 students that are at this acting Shakespeare conservatory, and while they are there, this horrible tragic accident happens, or so we are told it's an accident, but there is an inclination that it might have not been an accident, and somehow, in some way, these students are involved in this tragedy. And you don't really know why or how, or if they all were, or if none of them were, or what is going on. And you kind of follow them throughout the book, before this happens, when it happens, and after it happens, and you kind of see how the pieces kind of come together and exactly what happened. Now, I will say that I did predict the twist. After I read the book, I was looking at some of the Goodreads reviews, and a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, the twist totally got me. I did not see it coming. I don't know why, but I did see the twist coming, and I guessed it pretty early on just because there was some hints. But I actually didn't really mind that. I do think that the author put those in there for you to maybe pick up on, or maybe not. But for me, I did pick up on them. I still thought that the twist was well done, but I did predict it. Because of that, I did give the book 4 out of 5 stars, just because it was a little bit predictable. But that being said, it was still a fantastic novel. The way that the author writes was very engaging. Again, I was hooked from the very first page. I also loved how this author incorporated Shakespeare into the story. There are so many instances where the characters are quoting Shakespeare in their heads or out loud, and it has to do with the situation they're in, or they're performing Shakespeare. And even if you're not familiar with Shakespeare, you don't understand Shakespeare, maybe you don't even like Shakespeare, I don't think that you need to necessarily understand what they're saying in those circumstances to enjoy this book. It would still make sense to you even if you're not familiar with that kind of language, if that makes sense. But if you are familiar with that, I think that it just makes it even more impactful when these situations are happening and Shakespeare is being related to it and his language is being related to it. And if you are a lover of Shakespeare, you will definitely appreciate that in this book. But like I said, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was a great read, very enjoyable. Characters were really well fleshed out. I really liked the main character. He was engaging, he was funny, he had a lot of different dynamics going on with the other characters and the relationships, and it was very interesting to see how these 7 people were integrated with each other and how the relationships worked. So yes, this was a great read, definitely recommend it. And finally, I have the last book that I want to talk about that I did not actually finish. This was a DNF for me, and I am so disappointed because I really wanted to enjoy this book, and that is The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. I had heard really good things about this book. One of my favorite authors, the author of the City of Brass series, actually has a quote on the front, and that's what made me drawn to this book, because I would read anything by her. I would read her grocery list. I mean, City of Brass is those books are some of the best books I've ever read in my life. No joke. I love that series. So I was really ready to love this, but I just could not get into it. I don't know what it was really, but I just felt a little bit detached from the characters personally. I couldn't really fully feel like I was in their head, and I felt that the plot was moving along just a little bit too slow for me. I just was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen, and when things finally did happen, I just didn't find myself very interested in it, or couldn't really make myself care enough. You know, and it wasn't bad. I wouldn't say that I didn't enjoy parts of it, but I just didn't enjoy it enough to finish it. My bookmark is literally still in here. I DNF'd this around the 377 page mark. I mean, I did almost finish it. Maybe I should just try to finish it, but I don't know what the point is if I'm not enjoying myself. You know, I used to be that kind of person that felt I had to finish every book I read, and I'm just not that way anymore. If I'm not enjoying it, you know, unless there's like, you know, 50 pages left or something really small like that, I'm just not gonna finish it. I'm just not, and I just cannot get myself to be into this enough to finish it. But basically, this book, I'll read you the back. It says, trapped by her despotic brother within the crumbling walls of an ancient temple, Princess Malini dreams of vengeance. Forced to disavow her birthright and her power because of her past, Maid Servant Priya dreams of freedom. In a world beset by wild magic and turbulent uprising, their destinies will become irrevocably tangled, and together they will set an empire ablaze. I did really, really want to like this book, and you know, maybe I can give it another try sometime in the future, but right now, it is just not the book for me. So I did DNF this, but if it sounds like an interesting book to you, you check it out. It just wasn't for me. And now I'm going to get into some of the books that I am about to read. The first one is one that I actually already started, and that is Bunny, again by Mona Awad. Hope I'm saying her name right. I should look it up. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering her name, but this is the same author of All's Well, and this story follows a girl named Samantha Mackey. She is at a highly selective MFA program for fiction writing, and at this program there are 4 other girls within the program with her, and they all are friends, and they call each other Bunny. They literally call each other Bunny. And so you don't really know why they do that. She's kind of an outsider, outcast away from them, but after a little bit of time, they end up inviting her over to this party at their apartment, and she goes and she meets with them, and a lot of strange things begin to happen, as seems to be the case for this particular author. I'm not very far into it, only like 78 pages, but I am really enjoying it so far. It's definitely got that very strange vibe, just like All's Well did. I have heard that this one has a little bit more of a horror vibe than All's Well. I will say I'm not as completely pulled in as I was with All's Well, but it is still very interesting so far, and I definitely am excited to finish this book. The next book I have is actually one I had never heard of before, and I just randomly found it at the bookstore, and that is The Dark Lady's Mask by Mary Sherratt. Now, this is actually a fictional book about the Dark Lady, which is a woman that Shakespeare wrote sonnets about, and to this day no one really knows who she was. Of course, there are theories, there are some ideas of who she could have been, but no one truly knows exactly who she was. And so this is a fictional story about that woman and her relationship with Shakespeare and the things that happen. And it just seems right up my alley. If you can't tell already, I love Shakespeare. I'm a huge fan. So this just really called out to me when I found it at the bookstore. I really cannot wait to read it. I haven't looked up reviews. I don't know anything else about it besides just what it says on the inside flap. I'd never heard of it before, but again, it just really seems like something I'm going to enjoy, and I really can't wait to get into it. The next book I have that I am so excited to read is The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. Now, this book I have heard a lot of things about, and a lot of people are reading it right now, and everyone seems to really enjoy it, so I can't wait to read it. This is what the inside flap says. Neither here nor there, but long ago, Luli al-Nazari is the Midnight Merchant, a criminal who, with the help of her jinn bodyguard, hunts and sells illegal magic. When she saves the life of a cowardly prince, she draws the attention of his powerful father, the Sultan, who blackmails her into finding an ancient lamp that has the power to revive the barren land, at the cost of sacrificing all jinn. With no choice but to obey or to be executed, Luli journeys with the Sultan's oldest son and one of his infamous 40 thieves to find the artifact. Aided by her bodyguard, who has secrets of his own, they must survive ghoul attacks, outwit a vengeful Jinn Queen, and confront a malicious killer from Luli's past. Now, this seems right up my alley, the kind of fantasy I love to read. Again, one of my favorite authors, author of The City of Brass, has said at the top, a thrilling epic of found families, ancient magic, and stories that linger. Really hope that I can believe her this time, because I didn't enjoy Jasmine Throne, but I really do think I'm going to enjoy this story. It really seems like something that I'm going to like. I cannot wait to read this. The next book I have on my TBR list is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. Of course, this is a very well-known, famous, beloved fantasy book series, beginner to the series. I really cannot wait to read this book. This seems like something I'm going to love. I have heard that the characters are just, you absolutely fall in love with them. You love following them. The back says, "This is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with the Great Red Rift across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal and long dormant wounds rising up to fester. This is the stillness, a land familiar with catastrophe, where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon, and where there is no mercy." So I really don't know exactly what this book is about, because that's kind of a very vague description, I would say. But like I said, I have heard incredible things about this book series, so I really can't wait to get into this. And finally, the last book on my TBR at the moment is The Forever Sea by Joshua Philip Johnson. Again, this is just a random book I found actually when I was in Benicia, California for my cousin's wedding. I found this at a local bookstore there. But basically this follows the story of this woman named Kindred Greyreach, and she is a hearthfire keeper and sailor aboard harvesting vessel the Errant. And as you can see by the cover, this ship actually is sailing over this field, not water. So there's this interesting magic system going on. The rest of the back says, "Her grandmother, the Marchess, legendary captain and hearthfire keeper, has stepped from her vessel and disappeared into the sea. But the note she leaves Kindred suggests this is not an act of suicide. Something waits in the depths, and the Marchess has set out to find it." So this seems like a very whimsical, fun fantasy story. I really am excited to read it. I think read the first chapter on the plane when I got it, and then I just kind of stopped, not because I didn't like it, but just because I didn't really want to read it quite yet. But I really enjoyed what I read so far, so I can't wait to finish this. Like I said, it seems very whimsical, very fun, very magical. It seems very unique, the story and the idea, so I'm just really excited to read it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to my channel. I post content about book reviews, but I also post about my life here in Orlando as an actress and a teacher, and just living in the area. So if any of those sound interesting to you, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!